In the modern world, we have become obsessed with motion, constant activity, relentless progress, unending productivity. We treat our lives like machines running a race, assuming that the faster we go, the more successful we become. But a machine, no matter how efficient, needs rest. It needs maintenance. It needs to reset. When your phone begins to lag, you restart it. When your computer freezes, you reset it. But when your mind is overwhelmed, when your emotions are heavy, when your body is fatigued, do you offer yourself the same grace? Resetting is not laziness. It is intelligence. Only a fool thinks he can run endlessly without consequence. When we don't pause and reset, we begin to react rather than respond. Our lives become driven by survival instead of creation. Stress becomes our default setting, and anxiety becomes our daily companion. In such a state, even small tasks feel like burdens, and joy seems like a distant memory. Resetting is not about stepping back from life. It is about stepping inward, finding the still point within the chaos, and allowing life to flow from clarity rather than confusion. There is a deep difference between activity and aliveness. Many people are busy, but very few are truly alive. When you don't reset, you begin to lose the spark of aliveness. The body may keep moving, but the spirit begins to dry up. You start waking up tired, talking without depth, listening without presence. You eat but don't taste. You look but don't see. You live but don't feel. To reset is to reconnect, not with the world, but with yourself. It is an inner recalibration where your energy, thoughts, and intentions are aligned once again. Often, people fear slowing down. They think if they stop, they will fall behind. But in truth, speed without direction is just noise. Resetting gives you back your direction. It allows you to rise above the clutter and see with fresh eyes. It is a spiritual act, though it may not appear so. It is choosing awareness over automation. It is choosing consciousness over compulsion. The one who resets consciously does not fall behind in life. They begin to walk ahead because their steps are taken in the right direction. In a world addicted to motion, stillness becomes a superpower. When you choose to reset, not by force, but by awareness, you allow yourself the space to reflect, realign, and rejuvenate. You let go of the weight you didn't realize you were carrying. You begin to breathe not just through your lungs, but through your being. Resetting is not a delay in your journey. It is a deepening of your journey. It is not the end of the path, but the rediscovery of it. From the moment we are born, we begin to gather. We gather names, relationships, education, ideas, opinions, money, achievements, pain, and identities. Like a child collecting seashells on the shore, we fill our basket with all that life offers. But somewhere along the way, we start to believe that we are the basket. We mistake the gathering for the gatherer. We believe that our worth is defined by what we have collected, be it knowledge, wealth, fame, trauma, or titles. Yet no matter how full the basket becomes, the emptiness within continues to whisper. Accumulation is not a problem, but identification with it is. When you believe you are your memories, you become trapped in your past. When you think you are your possessions, you live in fear of losing them. When you cling to your opinions, you become blind to truth. Everything you accumulate, thoughts, emotions, beliefs, successes, failures, These are things you carry, not who you are. Just like clothes can be changed, roles can be changed, careers can be changed. What you wear is not what you are. If you forget this, suffering is guaranteed. Look at your body. Even it is an accumulation. What you eat becomes your body. What you breathe becomes your life energy. You are a process, not a product. Your mind, too, is a storehouse of borrowed information from parents, society, religion, media. You call it my thought or my belief, but rarely have you chosen them consciously. You absorb them unconsciously, yet defend them as if they define your soul. But your essence lies not in what has been added to you. It lies in that which watches, that which is aware of all the additions. When you sit in stillness, stripped of titles, stripped of labels, stripped of your stories, something remains. That is you. Not the person with a name, not the person with a history, not even the person with a purpose, but the presence itself. That presence is not an idea. It is a living, breathing awareness that cannot be reduced to your possessions or positions. The greatest mistake is to believe that being comes from having. It is the other way around. Only when you reconnect with your being can you truly enjoy what you have. Freedom begins when you stop confusing yourself with your accumulations. When you see clearly that your bank account is not your security, your resume is not your identity, and your pain is not your destiny, you begin to experience life in its naked, powerful simplicity. The silence beneath your thoughts, the space between your breaths, the awareness behind your eyes, that is where you live. That is who you are. All else is temporary clothing. Beautiful perhaps, but never the body. The past is a shadow, always behind you, but it grows larger when you turn your back to the light of the present. Most people don't carry their past as memory, they carry it as identity. What was once a moment becomes a definition. A hurt becomes a wound that never closes. A mistake becomes a label. And success too becomes a cage, chaining people to who they once were unable to evolve. Detachment from the past is not about erasing memories. It's about no longer being enslaved by them. Time moves forward, but many live walking backward. They speak today's words with yesterday's pain. They enter new relationships wearing the armor of old betrayals. They start new ventures while still fearing the failures of years ago. In this state, there is no true beginning. Everything becomes a repetition, a recycled version of the old. Detaching from the past means loosening your grip on the stories you've repeated so many times that you started to believe they were your truth. But they are just stories, not the living essence of who you are now. When you cannot detach, you cannot see. Your perception becomes colored by what you've been through. If someone hurt you once, you begin to expect pain from everyone. If you failed once, you hesitate to try again. But understand this: the past can only continue if you feed it with your present attention. The moment you withdraw your inner involvement, the past begins to dissolve. Like smoke with no fire to sustain it, it vanishes not by force but by absence of fuel. That absence is created by conscious awareness. There is a difference between remembering and reliving. Remembering is useful. It helps you learn, reflect, and evolve. But reliving is imprisonment. It keeps you bound to emotions that have long expired experiences that are no longer real, and people who may no longer exist in your life. Every time you revisit the past with emotion, you recreate its energy in your system. Your body tenses, your breath shortens, your heart replays the same rhythm of pain, and you wonder why healing never comes. To detach is to see it all and let it pass without grasping. Freedom is not in forgetting the past, but in being untouched by it. When you can look back and feel nothing but no bitterness, no regret, no attachment, then you are truly free. This freedom is not cold or indifferent. It is warm, alive, and aware. It's the ability to meet life fresh, with open eyes and an unburdened heart. Detaching from the past is not about denial. It is about reclaiming the present moment from the clutches of memory. In a world that glorifies hustle and constant motion, the idea of stillness seems almost rebellious. Yet true focus does not arise from frantic effort. It is born in the womb of stillness. The more you chase clarity, the more elusive it becomes. But the moment you become still, deeply still, not just with your body, but in your mind, your emotions, your breath, clarity begins to blossom on its own. Just as muddy water settles into clarity when undisturbed, so does the human mind when it stops churning. Most people believe focus is about tightening your grip on goals, on tasks, on outcomes. But this kind of focus is stressful. It's a strain, not a strength. It narrows your awareness rather than expanding it. True focus is not a rigid stare, it is a relaxed intensity. It comes not from effort, but from presence. When you are fully here, not distracted by memories, not seduced by future projections, focus happens naturally. It is not something you do, it is something you become. Stillness is not emptiness. It is the fullness of attention. It is that rare moment when the inner noise falls silent and you can actually hear the whisper of life. From this silence, precision arises. Decisions are made with clarity, not confusion. Words are spoken with awareness, not reactivity. Actions are taken with depth, not desperation. In this space, you don't just see the world, you see through it. You begin to perceive the subtle forces behind everything because your inner chaos no longer clouds your vision. Look at nature. The most powerful forces are never in a hurry. The sun rises with stillness. The moon glows in silence. Even the heart, though it beats continuously, knows when to pause between beats. If it didn't, you wouldn't be alive. Yet we think constant motion is a sign of achievement. We forget that the archer must hold absolute still before releasing the arrow. The more still he is, the straighter the arrow flies. In life, your focus is your arrow, and stillness is your bow. Stillness is not something you create. It is something you return to. It is always there, beneath the surface, waiting for your permission to rise. But most people are too busy distracting themselves to notice it. They fear stillness, because in stillness, truth becomes visible. In stillness, the masks fall. But if you're seeking real focus, not the focus that comes from pressure, but the focus that emerges from peace, then you must begin with stillness, not as an escape from life, but as the foundation for living it fully. Your mind is meant to be a powerful tool, precise, sharp, and responsive. But for most people, it has become a noisy storeroom where every thought, every worry, every past insult, and every future fear is thrown in without order. Just as physical clutter overwhelms a living space, inner clutter overwhelms your clarity. You cannot walk freely in a house filled with junk. Similarly, you cannot live freely in a mind filled with unchecked thoughts, unresolved emotions, and unnecessary noise. Most people wake up not into the present, but into their thoughts. Before the day even begins, the mind is already racing, replaying yesterday's arguments, worrying about tomorrow's deadlines, questioning self-worth, and imagining outcomes that haven't happened yet. There's no space to simply be. When the inner world is cluttered, even the most beautiful moments pass by unnoticed. You eat but don't taste. You listen but don't hear. You breathe but don't feel alive. Inner clutter numbs you to life. Clarity does not come from thinking more. It comes from thinking less, but consciously. Thoughts are not the problem. The problem is identifying with every single one of them, believing that they all matter, and letting them occupy your inner space unchecked. The mind is like a screen, and your thoughts are like pop-up windows. If you don't know how to close them, you'll soon be drowning in distractions. And when distractions take over, your energy becomes fragmented, like light scattered in all directions, instead of focused into a beam. To avoid inner clutter is not to suppress your thoughts or emotions. It is to observe them without entanglement. It's the art of watching without reacting. When you create a little distance between you and what is happening within you, you'll see how much of it is unnecessary. Echoes of other people's opinions, fears absorbed from the past, desires planted by society, and worries that belong to a future that may never come. That awareness is your broom. That awareness is what keeps your inner space clean. Just as you wouldn't leave trash lying around your home, you must learn not to let useless thoughts linger in your mind. Inner cleanliness is not a luxury. It is the basis of inner strength. When your inner world is clear, your actions become aligned, your words carry weight, and your presence feels grounded. You become less reactive, more intentional. You no longer live as a victim of mental chaos, but as a master of conscious choice. And from that mastery, true focus and peace begin to emerge.